22nd, 2022 at 7 o'clock p.m. Kathy, could you please call the roll?
Hummel,
Here.
Kilburn,
Here.
Locke,
Here.
Lowe,
Present.
Mathis, Meadows,
Present.
and Meisler.
Here.
And Mrs. Locke, will you please lead us in the pledge?
Of course. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and Dr. Hitchens, are there any items removed from or added to the agenda this evening?
There are not.
All right, then the first thing I would like to do is we have celebrations tonight. I would like to introduce Scott Bayer, Rick Miller, Ryan Farwell, and Troy Murray. They're going to talk to us about, from what I understand, state wrestling and swimming competitors.
Come on, Coach. Okay, Board of Education, thanks for having us this evening. My name is Troy Murray. I'm an English teacher in the school district, also the head boys swim coach for the Batavia, Geneva, West Chicago co-op swim team. The two swimmers that I was hoping we could honor, one of whom currently is sick with the flu. The other is senior Logan Townsend over in the corner, big, tall, blonde-haired kid. Were important parts of delivering one of the strongest seasons in program history. Over the course of the season, the boys won 5 of 6 invites that we were entered into, one of which was the first time that we've ever won it in 39 years of hosting the meet. They went on to win the conference meet. It was the 4th time in the last 4 years that we've done that. They took second at sectionals, which was the highest showing in program history, and we finished 7th as a team at the IHSA state swim meet. That was also the highest showing in team history. Logan was able to take 8th in the state in the 200 freestyle and 15th in the 500 freestyle, both of which shattered program records in those events. He, along with Mason and 2 other swimmers, combined to take 8th in the 200 free relay and 6th in the 400 free relay, again, both of which broke program records. I'm aware that not many people are swimming people, so just to give you a sense of how fast they swam the event, the 200 free is 8 laps, meaning there and back 4 times. They were able to do it as a team in under 1 minute and 26 seconds. They not only did well in the state meet in those 2 relays, those 2 events were also
Over the last 2 years.
they were also recognized as All-American times. That means that they were 2 of the 100th fastest times in the country in those 2 events. These boys are really fun to work with. Logan's a senior, so this season will be the last season I get a chance to work with him. But both boys are great to work with. They set really high goals, and they work hard to achieve them. So, yeah, congratulations, guys.
I don't know if I exceed the range of this microphone or not, being as tall as I am, but, for those of you guys that don't know, I'm Coach Scott Bayer, wrestling coach, Batavia High School, also a history teacher, and we're here to honor a handful of our athletes, both on the boys' side and the girls' side tonight. Thank you again for having us here. It means a lot that you guys would acknowledge these guys and girls. So for those of you guys that are here, I'd like you to stand up when I acknowledge you. So the first athlete I'd like to acknowledge is Jack Tonkovich. He's our senior captain this year. He put together a record of 29-7. He's a returning state place winner from last season. He qualified for state this year again and finished in the top 12, which is not easy to do. He's also a Duquesne Conference champion and is going to Chadron State next year in Nebraska, where he didn't receive a full ride for his wrestling, but he did receive a scholarship for his academics. So very, very pleased with everything he's meant to our program and the example he's set. Would also like to acknowledge sophomore Aiden Huck, who's also here. And he compiled at 113 pounds. Jack is a 182 pounder this last year. And Aiden was a 113 pounder. You can tell he's a little smaller than Jack. He put together 30 wins this year and qualified for state, and ended up not being just short of the podium, which is top 6, but he was for sure within the top 8 downstate as a sophomore. Avenged some earlier season losses with a big win at sectionals against rival Glenbard North. Really proud of him for the season he put together and can't wait to continue to work with him the next 2 years. Another captain, junior captain, Cale Andrews, who's not here tonight. Apparently, so he's at club practice tonight, and so I don't think, he probably looked at a board meeting as not making him better. But we wish he was here. He's getting better in the mats tonight. But I'd like to still acknowledge him. He finished, he's at 145 pounder, and he finished his season with a 40-10 record. And like Aiden, was another top 8 wrestler for us. He was also a Duquesne Conference champion, had a great season, and he's going to be our captain going into next year too. We do have Eno Garcia here tonight. Eno is a sophomore, and he wrestles at 106 pounds, or wrestled at 106 pounds. I'm sure he probably wouldn't make that right now, but wrestled at 106 pounds this year and compiled a 42-6 record. And he was one of 2 guys that we had this year that was an all-state wrestler. He lost his first round match and wrestled all the way back to the 3rd place match where he wrestled a nationally ranked kid who he took into the final overtime period and lost by 1 point. And so really just a phenomenal season. Again, he's only a sophomore, another Duquesne Conference champion. So great season for Eno. Caden is a lacrosse player, so he's not here tonight, but Caden is another junior captain of ours, and he wrestles 138 pounds. He compiled a 41-6 record, and he was the 4th boy in our program to make what's called the Grand March, which means he made it to the very final match this year, losing to a returning state champ there. But again, junior, we're really proud to have a kid in the Grand March. It showcases our school. He represents our school really well. He beat the number 2 and number 3 ranked guy to get to the final match. So huge tournament, huge season for Caden. Again, great to have him back next year. And then on the girls' side, this year we had the first year that the IHSA sponsored a girls' state tournament. And so we had the first 2 state qualifiers in our girls' history were Sandra Sanchez and Sydney Perry, neither of whom are here tonight, but I did want to acknowledge their accomplishments. So Sandra became our first girls' IHSA state qualifier. She was our 135-pounder. Is that rude to say about girls? I don't even know. She's a 135-pounder for us this year and won a match down there, so she proved that she belonged down there in that bracket. And cool thing about her, she was a first-year wrestler. She only started wrestling in our weird year last year in April, got a ton better, put a ton of work in the off-season, and we're super proud of her accomplishment. The other wrestler, the last wrestler I want to acknowledge is Sydney Perry, and she's a returning state champion from last year for the IWCOA, which is the Coaches and Officials Association. She's a product of our Batavia Wrestling Club, and she was, the way they do it is in the final round, they draw weights to see who goes first. So they drew 145 pounds, which is what she wrestles. And so she went out there in the very first finals match and became the very first IHSA state champ in state history for girls. So great season. She's a 2-time state champ now as a sophomore. And she's just a phenomenal talent, and she's ranked in the country right now. So I would like, because she's here, is Karina here somewhere? So this, not necessarily a competitive state finish, but I will say Karina is our first 4-year program graduate. She's the funny thing about that is we have a little corner of our room that says Batavia Bulldog Brotherhood, and so she's now a part of the brotherhood in that she stayed out for 4 years and never quit. So I asked girls if they want me to change that, the siblinghood. I'm not sure, but they kind of like cracking that barrier, and we're proud of her for doing it. So thank you guys for taking the time to acknowledge these kids. They are very worthy of this acknowledgement. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can I say something real quick?
Absolutely.
That's all right, that's
Absolutely.
appropriate. So I want to recognize everybody. I love hearing these stories and seeing the faces. But I do want to focus on the wrestlers, because I grew up in Iowa, and they say in Indiana, if you're in Indiana, you grow up playing basketball. In Iowa, you grow up wrestling. And so I can still smell the wrestling room, because I wrestled. You know, believe it or not, I wrestled at 106, and don't worry, I'm not at 106 either these days. So, but I want to focus on all the achievements are amazing, but the girls especially. And Karina, am I saying that right? You know, I have daughters, and you know, to wrestle takes a lot of courage. I remember that feeling of going out there, and there's no one to blame. It's you and the other person, and if you have a bad day, you're on your back. And so you should be extremely proud, because you're a trailblazer. And in 20 or 30 years, when women's wrestling is just a normal thing, you'll be the standard that everybody will look to that help break that ceiling. So you should be very proud. So I just want to give you one more.
I think we congratulate our new girls wrestling coach, I believe.
Boys wrestling coach is over there.
That's right.
And by the way, I know who to recruit tomorrow for our.
You might have some work to do on that.
And the next item on our agenda is public comments. So everyone, welcome. If anyone wishes to address the board this evening, I do know we have one person who's already indicated that they would like to address the board. But just see our recording secretary, Kathy Scafidi, to submit a form. Please put your full name and address on the form, as we're required by state law to keep a detailed set of minutes. In general, the board doesn't answer questions or engage in dialogue during public comments. It doesn't mean we're not taking your concerns or comments seriously. If you have specific questions or would like to further engage with the district, you can submit your questions using the link on the website, and the appropriate staff member will communicate with you. And now I'm going to pass it over to Holly Deachman, our communications manager, who's going to explain our procedures for public comments.
Thank you. Welcome. We have one person that has submitted a form. That's Killian Mullen. If you would like to head up to the podium, we ask that you just speak with respect to the people that are in the room. You're limited to 3 minutes. You've done this before. The timer's up on the screen, and when time's up, time's up. Okay?
Sounds great, thank you. Good evening to the school board and my fellow citizens. Before I would begin, I want to make it evident from the get-go that I'm a transgender man and use he, him, or they, them pronouns. My name is also Killian, in case you find that important. As you may or may not have noticed in recent news, Texas took action against transgender children that reside within the state. They chose to force other cisgender citizens to report the parents of fellow transgender citizens to the police department or CPS in order to detain the parents and send the child off to foster care. How could such an issue as this arise, where a child becomes stripped of their bodily autonomy and their right to living with the people who love and nourish their growth? Ignorance and a lack of reporting former transphobic abuses have concurred in a system and continually represses and disregards transgender people and their supportive families. The idea that transgender youth across the whole of Illinois need to feel safe and protected is a message echoed time and time again by our state legislator all the way down to local government officials. This, of course, includes the city of Batavia and therefore includes a public school that reside within the district of Batavia. Explain to me how, then, I'm going to school with no sense of safety or comfort as a transgender person and never have for the 4 years I've lived in this district and gone to our public schools. Tell me how, then, my freshman year I received death threats from a fellow student that I was told I should be put in an electric chair in order to cure the mental delusional disorder that I apparently have. Tell me how, then, when I reported this instance, the peer of mine was simply slapped on the wrist, and text receipts I had were asked to be provided to the school administration in order to review them with him and teach him to do better next time with no real punishment. Tell me how, then, fellow transgender students come to confer with me and other transgender students at our high school about how staff refuse to respect their pronouns and do not feel safe going to facilities that align with their gender. Tell me how, then, about 3 weeks ago, in front of my entire AP government class, I was called he, she by Mrs. Fallhaber, a teacher notorious among queer students for continually disrespecting them by disregarding their pronouns and using derogatory terms and slurs in her classroom, such as the word Makes you uncomfortable, doesn't it? Hearing a word like that said aloud? Typically, you would think to shun someone for using such verbiage, but after hearing derogatory terms, slurs, and death threats aimed at transgender students a number of times, I chose to stop counting a while ago during the 4-year stint I've had in the school district. You would be surprised. Words like these those make progressives in the school administration squirm in their seats and feel the need to ask me to use nicer terms to describe the deliberate discrimination transgender people in Batavia continually face at the hands of cisgender people like you. I'm telling you now that I'm sick of it and I won't use pansy terms to describe such occurrences anymore. I'm also telling you now that you better take that discomfort and instead of promising me and other transgender students at our school comfort and protection with empty equity statements and lackluster posts on your social media feeds about caring for every student, do something about it. I stand in front of you today, fellow citizens of Batavia, and calling you not only to do more and be a more attentive ally and listener to the transgender people of the city, but also call upon the Batavia School District to make a statement followed by action in support of your transgender students that are quickly making up more and more of your student body. Using pitiful lines like protect trans kids in your talks of equality and then turning around and telling us only behind closed doors the rights and protections that we have at our fingertips to a select few does not aid us at all. It simply continues the cycle of staying silent and ignorant about the issues the transgender community continues to face until a problematic situation arises and we beg for your help tirelessly since we have run dry of other options and don't know where else to run. Your kids are hurting. What will you do to fix it?
Next item on our agenda is our BPS partner, so I'd like to invite Todd Swanson to the podium.
First off, I just want to say to all the students, the wrestlers and the swimmers, great job. Eno, I taught you everything in 5th grade about wrestling, so we should be good to go. And Killian, thank you for coming to speak as well. As always, I am so encouraged by your actions. Oh, let me start again. Good evening. As always, I'm always encouraged by your actions as members of the Board of Education. Listening with an objective ear, seeking out clarifying answers, and using the lenses that have shaped you as a person, all have shown you to be discerning consumers of information and thoughtful decision makers. Please know that my door is still always open and my inbox is always ready to hear from you. This year, I've been focusing my time with you on larger topics: teacher burnout, the acknowledgement of it, and plans to address it, along with diversity, equity, and inclusion, all have been constants in my addresses to the board. Most recently, I've talked to you about our amazing LRC directors and the challenges of their current building situation, the plea for more interventionists to support our neediest non-IEP learners, and the ever-urgent need to make our district-wide motto of "You belong here" more than just words to our most underserved and marginalized groups, our students of color, our students who speak different languages and come from diverse backgrounds, our LGBTQ students, and equally as important, and the topic for me tonight, is our students in desperate need of social and emotional supports. Don't get me wrong, we've grown tremendously as a district in how we identify and support our need for social and emotional learning. We can launch into immediate interventions for those who may be contemplating self-harm, and we have a screening process that helps us identify specific needs of students centering around positive problem solving, empathy, emotional management, and readiness to learn. This all comes from our incredible social workers and psychologists, our special ed administrators throughout the district, and our indispensable paraprofessionals who work one-on-one with students that need the most intensive support. More often, this assistance doesn't focus on academics, but rather social and emotional skills for life. The need for this type of work in our district is not only increasing, but becoming more and more a necessity. Not too long ago, wellness was a special in elementary buildings. Our social workers met with every student each week to deliver lessons that were age and grade level appropriate around the topics covered in social emotional learning. Through no fault of anyone involved in this process, once a week, though better than nothing at all, just wasn't enough time to be impactful, as we needed SEL to be for all of our students in elementary. When wellness went away, the work of supporting our students with their SEL needs fell back onto the plates of the elementary teachers. Similarly, at the middle school, changes in the old X time and a move to an advisory period found teachers at RMS now delivering a 20-minute SEL lesson to each RMS student on a daily basis. And at the high school, a systemic Tier 1 SEL support for every student is elusive, but Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports mean that kids that need them the most get them. Our teachers and support staff work diligently to meet the social emotional needs of their students, but oftentimes find the different needs of so many children in their charge to be a hard task to navigate. Now, Go and throw a pandemic into this mix, filled with masking, remote learning, and quarantining, the levels of stress and anxiety understandably skyrocketed over the last 2 years. Some of our youngest learners, kids in grades 3 and younger, have never had a full year of full day instruction, ever. So you might be asking yourself, where's Todd going with all of this? So please allow me to quickly elaborate. When we think of class size in BPS, we have a negotiated set of numbers that equate to guidelines for numbers of students in a classroom. 22 for pre-K through 2, 26 for 3rd through 5th grade, 30 for grades 6 through 12, and PE classes have a guideline of 40. These numbers strictly refer to the number of students that are sitting in a chair in that learning environment. And we all know that as guidelines, sometimes that count falls below the target number, while other times it exceeds it. We are extremely appreciative of the efforts during the pandemic to try to keep those numbers of students in a classroom at or below guidelines. It has made a world of difference in reacclimating students to full-time, in-person learning, and in trying to meet not only academic goals for all kids, but social-emotional ones as well. We have a process in place through our collective bargaining agreement that allows a building principal and the association to work together to provide relief when the guidelines are exceeded in terms of numbers of students in a class, the physical environment creating extraordinary needs, or if the composition of a class creates extraordinary needs as well. My hope in telling you all of this is that when you see on paper the number of students in a class, please remember that is merely a representation of the number of human learners that will be registered in that classroom. What that number doesn't necessarily reflect is what each human learner brings into the classroom along with him or her that could impact their ability to socialize, learn, and grow. Class composition that recognizes the unique requirements of each student not only makes a more manageable task for the classroom teacher to reach all students, but allows each student to have the chance to have his or her unique needs met as well. Our students are more than just a number on a piece of paper that aligns to a set guideline. For as amazing as our teachers are and our support staff are, their jobs become even harder as those numbers in classrooms begin to get further away from those targets, especially when taking into consideration the non-academic needs of our students. Again, I am thankful that we have a way to process class size concerns through the BEA along with administration. As a board, it is my hope that you also continue to think of our students as not just a number on a roster that adheres to a guideline, but ponders the importance of class composition as being equal in consideration to the number of students in a classroom. When you think about the impact a classroom teacher can make in terms of academic and social-emotional learning, what happens to that impact as the numbers exceed the guidelines or when the numbers are at or even below guidelines? That answer seems pretty evident to me, and I hope to you as well. Thank you, as always, for listening, for pondering, and for continuing to grow as learners yourselves. I wish you all a great spring break, and I'll see you all in April.
The next item on our agenda are our committee updates. Chris, you want to go first?
Sure, I got nothing. I didn't have a committee. I think we have CAC on Thursday.
All right, Aaron.
Capital projects did not meet. We had a community engagement session on the 10th. We had a modest but robust turnout that night. And our final engagement session is this Thursday at Rotolo. And if you've been waiting to attend, this is your last chance. We're putting it on the east side of town, so we're hoping to attract a few more people. But you know, I'm kind of thinking this is your chance. If you want to participate, you're going to get a lot of good information, and you're going to be able to provide feedback. So we really do need that feedback. It'd be great to see some new faces there. So I hope everybody can make it on Thursday from 6:30 to 8:30 at Rotolo.
Thanks, Aaron. Sue?
Beefy meets Thursday, and the scholarship committee met Monday. So we have not announced yet, but there will be an announcement soon about the scholarship recipients. Hall of Honor met last week, and I don't believe everybody's been notified yet.
Not
So
yet.
coming soon.
Lots of stuff coming soon.
Yes, coming soon. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
But if you have nominees for next year's Hall of Honor. I think we'll be accepting those nominations anytime.
Yeah, always open.
Always open, so. That's
Insurance,
about
sorry, Sue. Insurance company did meet. Once again, the group just does an amazing job of always trying to find the best support and service for our employees, but also always looking to manage our benefits so that we are being fiscally responsible. So that is a continuing, and I'm always really proud of the work they do. Best committee. Craig?
I was not able to attend RAC, but I was able to catch up with what occurred afterwards and discuss beforehand. So we went through a number of things, the BOFT kind of funding options and community engagement update as we try to keep, and Tony and company try to keep all the different parties informed with each other as the process moves along and help people understand the scale and the scope of what's associated with that work was important. And it seems like it was well received. Additionally, which is a kind of a new topic, was a proposed residency verification process. This is a process, just as it named, to make sure that, you know, people that live in the district or attending the district, that they're not outside of the district living there and attending here. And kind of walk through the process so we understand that it's not a draconian process and it's not too much of a bear on the resources of the district. But it's to kind of keep everything equal and fair. And then lastly, some feedback from the elementary school supply, which has been overwhelmingly positive, 95% as I understand it from the teachers end, and it's going to continue next year at the elementary school level. Did you okay?
Yeah, that was excellent.
All
Thank
right, you're welcome.
All good, thanks.
Yeah.
I unfortunately missed PLEC this week, but Vic met on Saturday, and as always, is a delight to hear what is going on in the district, so, with the different booster and PTO organizations. That's all I have.
Excellent. That's easy. The next item on our agenda is our consent agenda, which is an opportunity for us to pass a number of routine and recurring business items. All the details are included in the board documents. So if Mr. Pierce, you would take us through that?
Yes, here we go. 5.1 and 5.2 is the approval of the regular meeting and closed session minutes from February 22nd, 2022. 5.3 is the approval of the special meeting minutes from March 7th, 2022. 5.4 and 5.5 is the approval of special meeting and closed session minutes from March 8th, 2022. 5.6 is the monthly personnel report. 5.7 is our monthly payroll and bills. 5.8 is the Valise Intergovernmental Agreement Update. 5.9 is the Fox Valley Career Center Intergovernmental Agreement. 5.10 is the curriculum contract. 5.11 is our textbook display. 5.12 is the approval of textbook, and 5.13 is the approval of this consent agenda.
All right, any items to be removed or any questions about anything on the agenda? All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Meadows, second by Meitzler, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, consent agenda passes. Next item on our agenda is our reports, which I will hand over to Dr. Hitchens.
Great. You could see we have 3 reports tonight, and the first 2 are ones that you see every month. Are there any questions about either of those reports? Hearing none, I would move to our 3rd report about the equity statement. This is a continuation from our presentation. You saw 2 presentations last month. One was from the Strategic Plan Check-in Committee. So staff members, students, and community members met and reviewed data, and we had many focus groups that occurred in the first part of this year. They prioritized our needs, and then after their report, we had a next steps report. And so I am updating you on some of those next steps, and we'll also update you April and May. And 3 of the things that we said that we would follow up on, we've had equity work happening throughout the district this year, but a few things that we knew we needed to move on that more quickly would be that equity statement, and that you can see is linked in the web report and linked to the website. And we did engage in a process where we asked stakeholder groups throughout the organization to provide us feedback. We used the State Board of Education statement as our starting point because of our need to align with them. They will be giving us an equity score annually, starting this fall. And we wanted to make sure that we were in alignment. And the feedback that we got, probably the number one feedback was try to keep it simple so that it's clear so that we can try to make sure that people understand without it being too wordy and have people not read it because it is too wordy. But people had a lot of really great ideas, so what we are proposing to you is to include those on the website. You can see that when you go there, you hover over it, and you can see the description of what that means for us. That's how we used everyone's feedback, so those are words directly from people's conversations that they had. The teams had conversations and gave that to you, and that's how their feedback has been incorporated. We also, as a next step, said that the board would engage in equity training, which, as you see, we approved the minutes there from March 8th, and that went really well. And the action planning team is a really critical next step here. So the equity statement is a statement, but if we don't have any action, it doesn't really mean anything. And we have been committed to the work, but we also have an equity team that will say, how can we get better? That was part of that process, that the strategic plan check-in team gave us a couple things that they said, here's how we can get better. And we'll have this team look at other data as well to come up with an action plan, because this is really about action. And part of that team, they'll make the action plan, and then they'll also talk about what's their role moving forward. Is there a reason for them to continue on as a committee? One thing they could do is they can offer feedback about the statement, make sure that the district is understanding of the words that we're using. Some districts call it DEI. We are using the state's language of educational equity and equity, and we will turn that over to that team to have some follow-up conversations as well. And they will be bringing that back to you in May. They're meeting on April 21st. We're accepting applications now from the staff. They've already started applying. We just sent it out yesterday. Todd and I sent out a message, and we were working with BEA leadership to determine how we could best have the right people at the table. And that they'll meet on April 21st, bring you some recommendations in May.
I like this book. I don't know if it's
Can we read the equity statement out loud, just so that it's in the record and people at home can hear it? If that's okay?
Do you want to do it, Chris?
Sure. We have an urgent and collective responsibility to achieve educational equity by ensuring that all policies, programs, and practices affirm the strengths that each and every child brings within their diverse backgrounds and life experiences, and by delivering the comprehensive support, programs, and educational opportunities they need to succeed.
Thanks, Chris.
I just thought it was important that people don't have to go and look it up.
Right.
Something else I wanted to just clarify, I know in the email, we had mentioned that there was an equity planning team, and here we're calling it an action planning team. And I know words matter, and, the important thing is that that action team gets to define really who they are, and that action planning team is more accurate description than the equity team, which was included in the email. And so I'm clarifying that that is in case true.
Yep, they have a goal on April 21st, and so that's like a one-day summit. We were trying to define it, but they are in charge of developing that action plan. And then part of their day will also be discussing what role, if any, do they have moving forward.
And we're committing that day where those staff members will be relieved from any other duties and just have the opportunity to work on that.
Yeah.
So that's the commitment we've made. And in this time of short sub-staffing, that's a huge commitment. So
Right.
thank you guys.
You might see
for-
some of
yeah.
us subbing, so
Yeah.
we'll do what it takes to get.
That's right, we will.
That's right. Appreciate that, but I wanted to make sure everyone knew that too. Comments or questions or any other? I view this as an ongoing topic for us that we'll be revisiting pretty regularly.
The only thing I was gonna say, in looking at this, I know this kind of comes as a basis from kind of a state-based statement that we infused in it, which I think is fantastic, kind of our own meaning for the key words. So I think that's great and that's very helpful, and I like how it kind of does that. And I think maybe on the website, there should be even a little statement that says hover over the words to see more about it or something, because just looking at it, you kind of assume they're bold because they're not even like the blue link color, so that's
Oh,
one thing.
right.
The other thing is, as a person who's an efficient wielder of a run-on sentence, I really feel that that's what this is. I think there needs to be, and this is my opinion, I'm not trying to put it on anyone else, and it deals with my second comment, that I think while I agree that kind of, equity or commitment statements should be short and concise, I think they also need to be declarative, and I think this recommendation would solve two problems. One, when it's very, very long and you have about 22 words, and probably a period should have been there between each and every child and the word they, you sometimes lose the understanding of the word they means. And in an interpretation of this, if somebody skips over something, they sounds divisive, not inclusive. So I think that's my opinion, that it should be kind of considered a little bit more. The other thing is, maybe this thing needs a more of a specific statement at the end that says, and I'm gonna just put it out there, but I don't think it needs to be this, is where it says something along the lines of comprehensive support programs and educational opportunities, periods. We at Batavia Public School District 101 feel this is what each and every student needs to succeed. Because that's a statement, that is an action, and we mean it, and it's not a
Yeah, and I would
kind
argue
of tag at the end of the long sentence.
on that, you're probably, if we're gonna do that, it should almost be stronger than, I mean, I know you're
No, I'm with you,
spitballing
but-
that, but yeah,
yeah.
like, we are committed to, or
And I think
whatever.
we need to say who we are in this as well.
So,
That's
BPS
ownership,
101
that's
or-
us taking it, not, oh, we borrowed this from somebody else, and we mean we as the royal we,
Yeah, I like that.
So, my 2 cents.
They're worth about $1 tonight.
What does everyone think of that? Should I make that change?
Something a little
So
stronger.
taking those last 4 words and separating them out and making that statement a little stronger.
I'm also open to saying, let's push this back to the group that kind of help pull all the info together and get their input as well. I'm not just saying just because I think it, that it needs to be it. But if everybody else feels that way, then yeah.
At this point, like we did survey, or,
Okay,
there were 15 teams that
Yeah,
gave
you're
you
right. Good
feedback.
point. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is okay for you to,
Okay.
from this point, because you're not really changing
I'm not changing the
what they
language.
gave
No,
you.
no, no.
I think that would be on the 6 of
Yeah.
you to
Okay.
decide if
Fair
that's
enough.
a decision. We don't need to,
Okay.
something, because you're not changing the tone or
Nope.
the,
No.
well, you are changing the tone a little bit to make it stronger.
I think part of this process is acknowledging the fact that this could change in the future as we go. I mean, so as we get feedback from the community, as we get feedback from other people, we're likely going to change it, and that's okay.
And we should.
Yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress, just like this entire process. So I like those changes and making it easier to understand. But I think, it's a good start, and as long as we hold ourselves accountable to this, and also know that there's associated actions that will go with this the same way that we have with our mission statement, that there will be goals and trackable data to show our progress, so. Yeah.
So you did like the changes that Craig was
Yeah, I like the
suggesting?
changes, but
Okay.
I think, we need
They
to know
won't
that
be
it's
the
going to
ones.
change potentially.
Okay. Aaron, what do you think?
They sound good, but, I just heard them 60 seconds ago, so.
Would you be comfortable with Lisa putting something together, kind of using all of our ideas and then sending it out to us before we put it on the website?
Yeah, I would be.
I think that's a
comfortable
good
with
idea.
I mean,
that. Yeah.
we can do a one-way communication to board members and it's not,
Yes, I like that idea. Thank you.
Great.
we all good with that? All right, awesome. And we can revisit this at the next board meeting, just to publicly declare that, like, yes, this is where we're headed, but we can send it out before then, just so we have a chance to
You can mull it
chew
over.
on it a bit.
There we go.
Yeah, we're good with that? Awesome. All right, that was all of our reports.
My 2 dots are above each other, aren't looking so ridiculous, are they? My 2 dots.
We do have a number of items on our agenda
Right.
tonight for action. We have a Chromebook purchase, so I'm going to invite Dave Thurlby to the podium to tell us all about those Chromebooks.
Good evening, everybody. So I wanted to kind of just briefly explain the Emergency Connectivity Fund. It was actually started with the pandemic. They released an act, I'm trying to remember the exact word in here, the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Essentially, it was a funding project that was started to originally kind of get students connected to the internet at home. People that do not have internet, people that had slow internet, whatever it was, it started out as that. So that was kind of like their first wave. When I found out that, we applied for some funding for personal hotspots for some of our students here, which actually was pretty successful. But then they came out with a wave 2 that actually allowed us to apply for other types of devices. So I applied for Chromebooks. That actually turned out very well. We now have 1,700 Chromebooks pretty much fully funded to cover all of the next pretty much refresh that we were planning to do. And I took advantage of that to also cover maybe a 4th grade level and then also increase some of the performance of these devices just due to what we dealt with the pandemic. We had students with Google Meet issues where they would time out just because they needed more power in the Chromebook. So I'm trying to raise that bar as we move forward, and as is every other website in the world right now. So basically, it's a fully funded purchase that came from that Emergency Connectivity Fund. So it was a very good thing to find. So, you guys have any questions?
Is that something you had to apply for, or?
Yeah, so it kind of works like E-rate does with what we do with a lot of like our internet services and things like that. So you just basically put in a request for it and you ask kind of what you want to do and kind of your plan as to why, what issues you had. They basically wanted me to explain like, what are you struggling with? And what do you want? What do you want help with? You know, things like that. And the whole act is built around that and helping our students get something better, stronger, faster, you know, and that's how I set it up. And we're getting Chromebooks that are literally the top tier at this point of what we have in the whole fleet. And it's essentially about a third of the whole fleet, so 1,700. So.
And that's funded by the federal government, or, okay?
It's an FCC funding. Yep.
And those Chromebooks, I heard you say 4th grade, but
4 grade levels.
4 grade
Yep.
levels, okay.
Yep. I'm trying to get to the point where we have an actual cycle that's consistent. I know we've kind of gone all over the place over the years, and I'm trying to get it to where it's a consistent cycle that we're doing every year. That budgetary item as well, so fiscally responsible as well, to where we're actually keeping kind of a consistent refresh cycle on these guys. Instead of having some go further, some go shorter, it'll be a consistent process. It helps us in the Google world too, because they're pushing the bar every year. So this will help a lot.
Helps with the budget too. So
That too, because I can actually keep a solid number instead of
Yeah.
one year it's this, next year it's this, and,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. Any other questions?
I just want to point out that it was $675,000 that we just saved, so
Yep.
Exactly.
kind of a big deal.
Awesome.
And thank you, Dave, for being on top of
Yeah,
that.
great work.
Tony's
Although
an
we haven't
amazing
saved anything
call.
because we haven't voted for him yet.
It helped, right?
Assuming we approve it.
Right?
We are paying
So
for it.
let's buy those puppies, guys. I would entertain a
Controversial.
motion to approve the purchase of 1,700 Chromebooks from IT Savvy Technology Resource Advisors in the total amount of $674,900.
So moved. Oh, second.
Everybody wants on that.
Oh, we'll go with moved by Locke.
Yeah.
Anybody want a second?
Second.
And second by Kilberg. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks, Dave. That's
I did want to
awesome.
tell you real quick too, TRA was actually acquired by IT Savvy, so when you guys see these things come through, it's still the same company, they're just one now. So
Okay.
just so you guys know that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
All right, and Mark Anderson's going to talk to us about custodial services.
Did you apply for a grant?
Yeah, this one's not free, sorry.
I was gonna say.
So it's required that we go out to bid for custodial services. Actually, this was 5 years, because we were able to, after the initial 3 years, you have the option, if both parties agree, to extend it 2 years. Now we're done with that extension. Went out to bid, had 9 companies, custodial companies, put in bids. There's a wide range if you looked at the bid tab. The lowest one was one that did not meet the criteria because of, well, missed many elements of the bid process. And then the next lowest bidder is our current custodial provider, who has been with us now 8 years. and Alpha building maintenance. If you know, I know it's easy to always look at the lowest and the highest, and sometimes what I do. I can say that the highest is really not even from Illinois, from a completely different state. So my assumption is they just threw a number out to throw a number out. The numbers we knew would be higher just because of minimum wage requirements. So basically, the life of this contract, it will go from $12 currently to $15 an hour. So we knew there would be an increase, and there was. No concerns about Alpha building maintenance. They've been doing fine. Well, they've been here for 8 years. Really, there's not that much to talk about. It just kind of is going to continue on, hopefully, with the service that they're providing us. So unless you have any questions.
Questions from Mark?
No, I like the idea of keeping the same people.
Yeah, especially they already know our facilities, no learning curve.
And really, I would say most of the staff, I mean, there's people from the staff that have been here for even longer than Alpha has. And then when Alpha came aboard 8 years ago, that just, kind of moved over to that company. So again, kind of similar when I have conversations about transportation. A lot of the drivers have been in Batavia for a really long time, and that helps because of a shortage in staffing right now, really globally. But in stories I'm hearing, Batavia is lucky as far as to keep staff members in our buildings.
All right, then I would entertain a motion to award a 3-year custodial services contract to Alpha Building Maintenance Services, Inc. in the amount of $3,466,128.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Meitzler, second by Locke. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next item on our agenda is Brad?
Steve?
Steve. Oh, HR.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Brad. No.
Sorry, Brad.
Now, 7.3 is the resolution for the honorable dismissal of teachers. For those board members that have been here for years past, this is something we do annually to stay within the state code deadlines for dismissing our staff. The bulk of these teachers, when they were hired, knew that this was coming. This is not a shock or surprise to most of them because they might be hired for a 1-year contract to replace somebody on leave, or they might be a part-time staff member, or they might be somebody who was hired mid-year, and we traditionally dismiss those teachers honorably. We will be going through our cycle of posting positions and those sorts of things, and so there is a good chance that some of these names that we're honorably dismissing today, with your approval, we will be seeking your approval to hire back next month. And we do this to make sure that we are not overstaffed and that we stay within our budgetary guidelines. Simply stated, it's a good practice, and this is happening in school districts and school boards and school board meetings all over the state during the month of March. So that's 7.3. 7.4 is a resolution to authorize the notice of a non-renewal to a probationary teacher. And again, I'm seeking your approval on both of these.
Okay, so the first one's the honorable dismissal. I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Meadows, second by Meitzler. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then 7.4, I would entertain a motion to approve that resolution as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Locke,
Second.
second by Meitzler. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that was all of our action tonight. We will move on to administrative comments. Dr. Hitchens.
I'm good tonight, thank you.
All right, board members. Aaron, we'll start down with Aaron Meitzler.
I couldn't have said the words better about our fine women's wrestling team. Thank you, Erin, for saying that so eloquently, because it really encapsulated everything that should have been said about what we just heard about. And it just blows my mind to hear how fast the male swimmers went. That I can't even picture it in my mind. But congratulations to both of those groups. Thank you also, Erin, for talking about building our futures together. And that's about it from me.
All right, Craig.
Mine's short and sweet. I know for once, right? So we had a fantastic All-City Jazz. It's the first time in over 2 years that they've been able to do that.
That's awesome.
These kids all picked this up and were able to just kind of act like that they hadn't had basically 2 years off of playing instruments as a big group. This was the first big band in 2 years because the high school only did combos. And one of the amazing things about it is they have nearly doubled the number of combos that they have at the high school now because the kids are just so interested in being back with each other and playing exciting songs. And as usual, seeing the skill levels of the middle school get higher and higher and higher and push those high schoolers to do better and become great high schoolers. I'm excited for that. Lastly, tomorrow, down at the venue in Aurora, there's what's called the Night of Jazz, which is all the high school jazz bands are going to play extended sets. It is $5 a ticket at the door, presuming there's seats left, and then you can purchase them online, but I'd encourage anyone to get a chance to go see that. It's really quite an amazing thing, and I'm not saying that just because my son's playing in it, so.
That's it?
Yep, that's
Thanks,
it.
Craig. Sue?
Have a wonderful spring break.
Aaron?
I'll echo that, and I'll just say it again. We have our session on Thursday for community engagement, so you could go learn about our master facilities and then go hear some jazz down the river.
There you go.
That sounds like a perfect way to end the time before we head out for spring break, so I just hope everyone has a restful spring break. I was looking at the calendar, and in 2 months, we'll be preparing for commencement, which is sort of crazy to think about. So when we come back, we're going to hit it hard and finish out the year strong.
Chris?
I was recently talking to a friend about how time is going extremely slow on a day-to-day basis, but extremely fast overall, and how I can't believe how quickly this year has gone, and that we're almost at graduation time. And we have just made the transition from winter sports and activities to spring sports and activities, so stay warm while you're out there when it's snowing and raining watching those games. And congrats to all the great performances we have. The track boys and girls won the Duquesne Indoor. And I will keep it light today, so that's it.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly say, tonight's meeting and celebrating students and doing our equity work, and it feels almost normal, and that is the best feeling that I could even imagine. Seeing faces is amazing. So I also thank you all because of the work. I'm really lucky to work with you guys. That's the joy of being on this board, working with these students and with 6 other people that are incredibly passionate about it with me. So thank you for joining that journey. That is all of the items on our agenda tonight. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Third, fourth.
Everybody, right? Moved by Locke, second by Meister. All in favor?
Aye.
Well, Locke and Meister night tonight.
Yeah, we might as well ran the board.
All right, we are adjourned.
Lock it nice.
I do.